All right. Hey everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. It's about navigating the latest CAB forum key protection requirements. And we're presenting this today in partnership with Thales. And we'll be introducing you in a minute to the speakers. So first up, I'll introduce myself. My name is Dave Roach. I'm the product manager in DigiCert, associated with our code signing solutions. I'm based out of Dublin, Ireland, in case you're recognizing a non-American accent. And I'm joined today by Yarden Gaon, who is the product manager for Thales, and he joins us from France today. Yarden, are you with us?
Yes, hello everyone.
Thank you. All right, so on today's agenda, folks, what we want to cover is we want to review the changes that the CAB Forum is proposing, discuss the impacts that will have on you as users and those that are ordering certificates for their developer teams. We want to explore the options in terms of key protection, which will be required from the change going forward. We want to look at the strengths of those options that will be mandated to you once those changes take effect. Evaluate, how from an organization's perspective you should select the right option for you, and do a bit of a summary around that to kind of draw that to a nice conclusion to help you with those decisions. And then we have some time at the end around Q&A. Okay, so with that in mind, I'll first of all move to the first of our poll questions. And today we're going to ask you guys just to give us a bit of a understanding of what type of code signing certificates you are using today. And those options should appear on your screen. We'd ask you just to vote on those, and we'll get some evidence of where our audience are. Okay, and let's see if we have some results for that. All right, perfect. So of the answers we received, 57% of you are using standard code signing certificates only. 9% are using extended validation, and 20% of you are using both. There's 15% that are not sure, but if you're ordering code signing certificates from DigiCert, then it is one of those two standards, the EV or the standard code signing certificate. All right, so let's have a look at what the changes are, and a little bit of a review of when all of that is happening. And first of all, the good news is that in the past week, the CAB Forum has agreed, so both the browser and Microsoft and the certificate authorities like DigiCert have agreed to the proposal to postpone the changes around private key protection, which were planned for November 15th, 2022 until June 1st, 2023. So this was done in consideration with the impact it's going to have for software development companies, for customers that are using code signing certificates to perform signing of their software. But the change is still coming, and therefore this discussion today is all the more important because planning is required. There will be changes required to your processes, to the way you leverage the services that protect your keys, because going forward, like in the case of extended validation code signing, the industry is now mandating that all private keys for organization validation code signing certificates must now be stored in FIPS 140 level 2 or common criteria certified storage solutions. And what that does and why the industry is moving in that direction is because we want to strengthen the private key protection so that there is no more incidents of keys being acquired which were unprotected. There's an awful bad habit associated with private keys residing on build servers for convenience on developers' desktops. And that has led to those being acquired by bad actors, being then sold on the dark web, and therefore used for to impersonate organizations whereby those keys and certificates were acquired by those that wanted to write malware or vulnerability infected software and distribute it and bypass Microsoft Smart Screen filters and all of the validation checks done on the OSs across the software distribution ecosystems. But one of the things that we wanted to educate the audience on today is about what is FIPS 140 level 2 and what is the common criteria EAL set of standards. And of course, today we're delighted to be joined by experts on that topic. And Yarden is here with us. And Yarden, will you tell us, please, a little bit about the
thank
standard?
you. Yeah, thank you, Dave. So indeed, the two well-known certification standards, standard in the world are FIPS for the US and common criteria mostly used in Europe. So what is FIPS 140-2? There is also 140 now, 140-3. And why is it important? So FIPS stands for Federal Information Processing Standard. 140-2 or -3 is the benchmark for validating the effectiveness of cryptographic hardware. If a product has a FIPS certificate, then you know that it has been tested and formally validated by the US and Canadian governments. With that, also FIPS is a US standard. FIPS compliance has been widely adopted around the world in both governmental and non-governmental sectors as a practical security benchmark and realistic best practice. And this is why it became so popular. Organizations use the FIPS standard to ensure that the hardware they select meets specific security requirements. The FIPS standard defines 4 increasing qualitative levels of security, as we can see in this slide. So level 1 at the bottom, generally software crypto modules, no authentication requirements, no physical security requirements. Level 2, that I think you addressed as the required one, need hardware to achieve evidence of tampering. For example, cover, enclosure, or seals of the device. When we try to harm the device, it will be seen. It will not be possible after that to hide it. And this is as for level 2. Level 3 is tamper detection, as I mentioned now for level 2, with identity-based authentication. And last, FIPS mode indicator, the modules need to know when it is using approved algorithms. And last, the most difficult to achieve is level 4. This level is very rare, and in 2 words, requires robustness against environmental attacks and formal mathematical model. Next slide, please, Dave.
Yes, thank you, Yarden.
So, common criteria. Common criteria is an internationally recognized set of guidelines which define a common framework for evaluating security features and capabilities of IT security products against functional and assurance requirements. Same as FIPS, once completed, it provides assurance to buyers that the process of specification, implementation, and evaluation for any certified computer security solution was conducted in a thorough and standard manner. And for that, we have the EAL, Evaluation Assurance Levels. Same as FIPS, we can see the range of assurance levels. And also, as you mentioned at the beginning, our focus is on the assurance level 4, which is the most interesting for us. Industries like essential services, government agencies, critical infrastructures and high-profile organizations must have EAL 4+ certification, mainly for the sake of well-established trust in the product or service they are using. Dave, back to you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yarden. Okay, so and I see some questions are coming in the Q&A section, and I promise we will address as many of those as we can in the Q&A at the end. So keep them coming, please, and we'll move through them as many as we can when we get to that section. All right, so what are the impacts to customers? Well, essentially, it means that for private key storage, from June 1st onwards, any certificate orders that are raised must adhere to the FIPS or common criteria key protection methods, which mean that today when you order a code signing certificate, there will no longer be the option present to just upload a CSR and acquire a certificate as part of the concluded validation process. Instead, you'll be provided with the compliant methods of key storage that meet the FIPS compliant or common criteria standards, and that will mean we'll be introducing to you some of the familiar methods which is used for the extended validation code signing certificates, like a token or a HSM, but also some other options that are more software based, which are also compliant with those standards. When it comes to signing code, there will also be a change. So customers will need to adapt to the method of storage under which now the key is protected. And again, if you're using a hardware token, that will mean that it's PIN protected, and the PIN must be supplied during at the time of the signing request. If you're using a service or a HSM, you may be asked to provide credentials to identify yourself as a user to allow for the signing process to go through. In terms of ordering and renewing certificates, the important date now to keep in mind is June 1st. So even if you have an existing certificate and after June 1st you need to replace it or you need to renew it, the requirement of the order process will mean that the key must be compliant against the standards, again, aligning with FIPS or common criteria. So what this could mean is that even though you need to replace an existing certificate, if the key you used on the original order is not compliant in terms of storage, there will be a rekey required as part of that replacement process. It'll also apply for the renewal process, because with the FIPS compliant standard, the keys are typically generated on the device or in the service rather than imported in. So the ability to use a key that is not born or resides presently on a FIPS or common criteria protected device will not be able to be imported into it. This is the same also in terms of reissuance. So you need to keep in mind that there is a change coming in the way that whatever type of certificate you're ordering, a new cert, a renewal, or replacement, what the process is going to change for you from the 1st of June 2023 onwards. And again, these are standards that are implemented by the CAB forum itself. This is not a DigiCert specified standard. DigiCert is part of the CAB forum, and we see the benefits of this, but we're here today to educate you about the impacts in that regard. So what will be the options provided to customers when you're ordering a code signing certificate, again, a new or replacement or a renewal, when you come to CertCentral from the 1st of June next year onwards. So some of the options that you'll see here, and if you were one of those 19-20% of people that have EV and OV, or 10% of those that have EV only, you'll be familiar with not providing a CSR unless you are a customer using your own HSM device. So the first and the most common method And again, one of the core reasons we have Thales here with us is that DigiCert and Thales are great partners in terms of the use of Thales devices and hardware that comply with these standards. So the hardware token is very popular in terms of EV code signing. It is, we work with Thales in regards to that. The SafeNet e-token and the 5110 are very popular versions that we supply and offer to our customers when ordering EV. So we will offer that as one of the options for key storage. It means that we will ship the token to you, and therefore, once the certificate is validated, the key generation is done and the certificate is imported onto the token where the key resides. Another option that we'll be providing is, and again, it's underpinned by the technology and the hardware that Thales offer, is we'll be providing our own version of a key management service. We'll be calling that DigiCert Key Locker, and essentially we'll be offering the ability to generate a key as part of the service. You'll select that during the certificate order process. And what that will mean is you'll have a remote key, which is user accessible based on a set of credentials. And all of your signing is done in a hash-based way rather than having the key on a physical token, which can be in the client environment. So that is to a degree, very much following in keeping with a trend towards some key management services, which are compliant in a lot of cases with FIPS and common criteria. You can also supply your own token, provided you can attest that it is meeting with those standards. That means that if you're using a token today for EV code signing, you could use that same token to generate another key and to store another certificate on it. In that case, you just have to attest to us as part of the order process that your existing hardware, your existing token is meeting with those standards. And then for a large enterprise who maybe have invested in hardware security modules or HSMs, which are used in a multitude of different security cases, like Yarden mentioned earlier, and code signing is one of those. So you can protect your private keys for code signing on a HSM, and therefore you need to integrate your signing flows with the HSM to enable the signing to be done by the key, which is protected on your network device. One thing that we'll talk a little bit about more as well, which is not going to be something we present in the CertCentral order flow, but again, for large enterprise and for enterprises that do a high volume of signing and a high volume of automation, there are signing solutions on the market which are specific to code signing that offer off-the-shelf workflows around everything from cryptographic asset generation, like keys and certificates, to the signing and integration with all of the different libraries associated with that, and capturing all of the audit logs and visibility into all the records that are happening. So DigiCert has a signing solution called Secure Software Manager, and that is another viable integration possibility, because it leverages CertCentral to order the certificates, but it is more geared towards customers and organizations that are doing high levels of signing, high volumes of users, and with a high degree of automation. So at this point in time, we want to pause for a second poll question. And after, I hope you've listened in to myself and Yarden about the different options and the different compliance standards. And the question we have for you is about how you secure your keys today. So there's a lot of options there. I won't call them out, but let's hear what the audience have to say on those. Okay, let's see what kind of responses we have. Okay, so we've got a broad mix here. The most popular is that there is no protection used. There's 32% of those on the call, which are having either the private keys on developer machines or on the build server. We have some customers using HSMs, 10%, and there's 13% of you using tokens already, so you're familiar with that process. Interestingly, 20% are reliant on your engineers to protect those private keys, and I have to say that would concern me, because engineers, of course, in terms of software development, are most interested on writing their software and don't always have time or are under pressure to consider the security requirements of those private keys. So just be wary if you think if that is your answer, just be cautious of that as an organization. We don't want anything negative to happen to you if something did happen with a breach. So let's have a little bit of a deeper dive then into the options that you will start to see come June 1st next year when you're ordering a code signing certificate. So the USB token is one that is familiar in general to a lot of folks who are doing code signing, especially if you're doing extended validation code signing, because for that standard, it already requires FIPS or common criteria key protection. But just to highlight, who's it for? And typically it's for customers that have low volume single users that are responsible for signing and may not be doing it in a high degree of automation, but rather doing it, occasionally and upon demand. There is also a bit of support for other use cases around PKI, so it's not just specific for code signing. It could also be used for user identification or authentication. So how does that work, and how does that differ today if you're not using any protection for your keys? Well, when you order a code signing token as part of your process, you will be shipped a token in the post. So it's going to take, a next business day or 2 business days to get it to you. You'll have to run through some steps to get that token up and ready. You'll be setting up a passcode on it. You'll be installing some drivers. As when the certificate is ready to install, you'll be generating the key and pulling the certificate in. And if you want to use it in a session-based way where you're trying to do multiple signings without being asked for the PIN every time, you'll have to do a bit of configuration to enable a session-based login approach to the token. So again, what are the special requirements in regards to that? Your token, which contains the key, must be plugged in at the time of signing, whether that's on your developer's PC or into the build server, and you will be asked for a PIN every time. So, and again, we'll talk about, what the strengths are of all these devices in a kind of a conclusion in a few minutes. The next other kind of hardware-based solution that, again, we'll be offering in the order flow is a HSM. So this is really, the polar degree against the token. It's for really high volume. It's for high degree of security. It's got the tamper resistant capabilities and requirements built into it. So it's highly secure. It also will require, of course, when you buy a device like this and you rack it in your data center, that you have to do provisioning. You will have to install software developer kits and HSM drivers to get them set up, and then maintain those as you go. Key generation is typically supported in nice workflows associated with the HSM device itself. But if you're new to that, you'll need to upskill and become familiar with those so that you can align those with the processes for who should be doing it and how it can be automated. And then signing is done typically by an integration with the library provided by the HSM vendor, so that your tools are integrated, and that when you sign, you're not looking, you're signing third-party tools like SignTool and JarSigner are not looking for a key on the build machine, but instead is building the path back to the HSM where the key is protected and can be used for signing. If in terms of special requirements here, you will have to have some place to rack and stack and maintain and secure your HSM. And it is going to be a bit of you will require expertise and skills from your administration staff to be able to run and maintain these services. In terms of then, if we switch over to looking at software solutions that are compliant with these standards, and these these services, whether it's a key management service or a signing solution, which we'll talk to later, to be FIPS compliant, you should know that these are underpinned by hardware devices like HSMs provided by Thales, like the excellent Luna 7s and some of the more even the new Thales service, which is the Luna as a service, the DPod service, are underpinning a lot of these capabilities. But you'll typically hear of key management service providers from your cloud provider. So Microsoft have Key Vault, Amazon have their own. You have secrets management like HashiCorp Vault, and DPod from Thales is also a very well recognized and popular KMS service. And we'll be providing our own as part of that workflow ordering, where you'll be able to use a service from DigiCert called Key Locker to do key storage in a remote-based way. So what are these typically for? So again, it's more low to medium volume use cases when it comes to a lot of these KMS services. You typically start with a single key and single users, and then you can scale up. They do support automation in terms of signing, because like the HSM, I must add, because you can integrate your credentials as part of the flows so that you're not asked for a PIN at the time of signing. It does mean with a KMS, you're not purchasing your own hardware. You don't have a token to hold on to and protect, and you don't have a HSM racked anywhere. But how do you sign with these services? Again, the change is that these services will typically include some kind of resource groups and access policies that you must configure to determine who can do what when they do access the service. The key generation must be done as part of it, so you'll need to specify who has the responsibility for that. Your KMS provider will typically not be a CA, although DigiCert will be offering our own version of that. So if you are using an outside KMS provider or third party, you'll need to still order your certificates from a certificate authority like DigiCert, and then import those certificates associated with the private keys into your KMS service. And again, the signing is done typically using a library method, which builds the bridge from what you're wanting to sign to where the key resides in the key management service. And again, typically that's done in a hash-based way, rather than having to upload your full file to where the key resides. So special requirements there will mean that you need to set yourself up with a KMS account and continue to operate that account over the lifetime of those keys. You'll need to integrate those KMS services into signing commands, and that's typically done by libraries. And again, you'll need credentials to identify yourself at time of signing. And the final one then of the four core options, again, this is software based. This is where we talk about a code signing solution as a whole in terms of a software as a service type service. And in that regard, like the HSM, this is really geared towards high volumes of users, high volumes of keys, high volumes of signing. It has off-the-shelf type services around the generation of keys and certs, around the issuance of new certificates and replacements, and as well as the KMS and the HSM, it will support the integration with automation tools and CI/CD so that you can continue to do your signing in an automated way, but with the added benefit of the compliant key protection that the CAB forum now requires. Like the KMS and it doesn't require you to purchase any hardware, because the services typically have hardware running in the provider's data centers, and therefore the key protection is done as part of that overall service offering. There's a couple of different flavors of signing solutions. The DigiCert signing solution is a hash-based signing method, which means only the hash of what you want to sign travels to the key, which makes it really efficient and very fast. It also secures your intellectual property because it never leaves your client, the client side of the client-server relationship. But there is some signing solutions on the market which leverage a software upload method. So this is where you will upload your binaries, and they have to travel to where the key is, and then once they're signed, you have to download the signed files. Just a point of note, the difference being those upload methods are much slower, and they're not as secure because you're transferring your unsigned intellectual property even to a trusted party. It can be vulnerable to compromise as part of the transfer process. Special requirements, like the others, there is administration of the signing service, there is setup of libraries, and there will be processes around getting new keys and new certificates set up before you can get up and running with the signing perspective or the signing workflows itself. Okay, so we're on to our third and final poll question before we start to summarize those options and give you a bit more detail. And at this stage, we'd like to ask you about your automation and what level of automation you're doing for code signing today, because we believe that's a key factor in helping you to guide you in which of the storage options you should consider. All right, so let's see what kind of results we have in. Very interesting, and there's a really an even breakdown here between the four options. We're seeing the slight favorite or the slight most popular is signing is undertaken during a planned, regular, agile release. That's 31%. We've got equal 25% results for signing being done at each code commit, and also engineering has a rigid release process. The least popular, and this is good to hear, is that engineers are signing on the fly only 20% of the time. I know that still is required, and of course we have requirements for patches and stuff like that out of band and out of the normal release cycle. So it's not a surprise to hear that is still something that is happening. Okay, so let's have a look then at what the strengths of the different key protection solutions are, and we've tried to categorize this based on software, hardware, low volume, high volume. So the token, is really suitable for low volume because it's easy to set up. There's a limited capacity on a token. It can store a finite number of keys. It's suitable whereby you've had one developer or DevOps person that's responsible for the release, or a couple, and you can protect that key maybe in a safe when it's not in use. Also, the token has other non-code signing benefits to it as well. It's phishing resistant, and it also supports encryption. So, very a flexible piece of kit, and not just possible for you to use just at the code signing workflow itself. For the HSM, it's a very compliant device. It's got the tamper evident hardware processes being built into it. It is future proof in that we are working, and DigiCert and Thales work closely together around how we align our processes for a post-quantum world, so that we're moving away from, and the post-quantum algorithms are going to come on track as much quicker than everybody expects. Of course, it's a very fine-tuned machine. It's excellent for high performance and throughput. And a bit like the token, it's a multi-use case, multi-tenant type solution. It's not just for code signing. You can use it for multiples of different purposes. And also remote signing in an automated way without the requirement for a PIN to be submitted can be integrated so that automation is supported. From the KMS perspective, it's really, so this is again software, you're not purchasing any hardware. So for the KMS and the signing solution, you typically have a subscription type model from a licensing perspective. The KMS is very good to start off with a single key and a single user, a couple of users, and grow incrementally. It's typically reasonably easy to set up. It does support automation and integration with your CI/CD pipelines, like the HSM does too. But it will give you a centralized view on your keys and certs if you're using a KMS provider. So there you have the visibility of them. And again, that's something that the HSM supports as well. In terms of signing services, this is where a comparable for large enterprise with the HSM, but it's for an organization that may not want to manage and maintain their own hardware. So it's got the comprehensive code signing workflows off the shelf. It integrates with your CI/CD pipelines. It supports a wide range of code signing integrations. So not just your typical Java and Authentic code, but if you're doing more generic or Linux-based or open source-based signing, then your signing solutions typically have a wide set of processes to support a broad type of signing experience. Okay, and then so what do you consider, right? And very much there is going to be a kind of horses for courses type approach. If budget is important to you, then you're going to be looking at the more cost-effective measures to meet the minimum standard for compliance. But you may find that also because you're picking the budget option, it impacts on some of these other factors that we're picking here, such as ease of integration or productivity. In terms of productivity, we're talking about the number of users, the total signing volume, the total number of keys and certs. So when you start to scale that, you should be looking at either your own code signing solution or building your own workflows in front of an enterprise device such as a HSM. Ease of integration will also be important. If you're doing, the limited type of code signing restricted to Java and Authentic code, then you may be more comfortable with some of the solutions that support those models only. But if you're looking at a broader range and you want to pull in other types of signing into your managed flows, then again, a signing solution may be something that a large enterprise with that volume and breadth of signing should be considering from the outset. And then in terms of workflow alignment, is there one person who's used to doing all the signing? In that case, you may decide that a KMS or a USB token is suitable, and that you're happy with those options associated with that. If you're looking at large volumes of developers with permissions to sign using different keys for different product lines, again, that's where your enterprise grade HSMs and signing solutions may be a better fit. But one thing this does remind me a little bit of is that, that pyramid where you're trying to compare the three attributes of picking a software solution. Is it fast? Is it good? And is it cost effective? And generally you get 2 out of the 3. So if it's fast and it's good, it's not cheap. If it's cheap and it's good, it's not fast. And if it's cheap and it's fast, it's typically not good. So, consider what is required for you. Are you most interested in doing automation? Are you happy with using a token where you have to put in a PIN because your volume of signing is not that great? Do you have the capacity to manage a hardware device? And is that something that is aligning with your organization's preferences? And is a signing solution something that you think you will grow your enterprise towards, or it could be overkill related to the volume of signing you're doing. So really try and consider that. It's a little bit like, would you take, if you wanted to go around a racetrack fast, you take an F1 car or a NASCAR, you wouldn't take your minivan or your SUV. But if you were going grocery shopping, it's vice versa. There's no point in bringing an F1 car or NASCAR down to Walmart to pack up your groceries, because it's just not the right vehicle for the use case that you are undertaking. So try and weigh those options up and choose the best option for you. So yeah, let's just summarize then as to what's happening here. So June 1st, 2023 is the date to keep in mind. From that date forward, you will not be able to order a new code signing certificate without having selected and attested to one of the compliant private key protection services. The options again to kind of consider are around whether you want to choose a token, whether you're interested in a HSM network device, whether you want a key management type service, or whether a signing solution is good for you and your enterprise. So please consider those options. You've things to consider like volume of signing, number of users, integration with your CI/CD pipelines, whether that's Jenkins or Azure DevOps or GitHub Actions. Again, if you're doing automation, you're going to need some solution that doesn't interrupt that process with a pin. And then just general automation and alignment with your workflows and your key management and asset management processes. All right, perfect. So we've got to our Q&A time, and I'll just run through a few of these and see if I have some helpful answers for you. So one of the questions that Daniel Tobin asked is, how do I tell if I have an EV code signing certificate? So Daniel, there's a extended key usage on the certificate itself. It has a different code to the organization validation certificates from a CA. And those are typically read by a smart screen filter or by the browser when the software is being loaded. And the smart screen filter takes a more stringent level of trust against an EV code signing certificate than it does an OV certificate. And the reason for that is that the extended validation certificates have further validation checks done than the organization validation. So hopefully that addresses your question. Rybita has asked about, are we responsible for acquiring these solutions? And the answer to that is yes. The certificate authorities will need to present you with an option to choose how and represent how you're going to protect your keys. If you choose a token, then your certificate authority like DigiCert will offer you, will ship that token to you as part of the order process. If you're choosing a different option, you'll need to attest that that option you choose is compliant with the FIPS standard. So Terry Benoit was asking, will these different levels be available for purchase? So I think Terry asked this when we were showing the FIPS and the EAL levels. So DigiCert will offer services that meet with the minimum standard. So we for the tokens, we are offering the SafeNet E tokens from Thales, the 5110s. If we're selling HSMs to our customers as part of the process for large enterprise, we use the Luna 7s, which again meet with the minimum standards here. So any of the hardware or service or software-based solutions that DigiCert offer will offer you the minimum. If you're bringing your own solution, whether that's your own token, your own HSM, or your own key management service, when at the time of order. You should ensure that it meets the minimum. There will be ones that are higher, so you can choose those if you decide you want a greater level than EAL level 4 or FIPS level 2. Okay, are DigiCert providing pre-configured hardware tokens available now? If no, when will these be? And how do we purchase one? Okay, so there's some good questions there. So we are providing them for EV code signing today, not for OV. We will be, when we'll be releasing these, we will release them as an option before June 1st. We haven't settled on a date yet, but at a very minimum, it'll be ready before June 1st. But I think we'll be organizing a notification around when we'll make that available, and the hope is that we will do so before June 1st, even though it's not required until June 1st onwards. And how can you purchase one? It'll be part of the order flow. So when you log in and you place your order and you click on the button to purchase, before you do that, you'll be selecting which key storage service that you'll be choosing. Is the custom length option going to be available in CertCentral after the change? I think, and this comes from KISS, I think KISS, when you say custom length, you may be referring to the length of the certificate. I'm going to assume that's what you mean. And that will not change. So the length of your certificate will not change, but it'll just be now that you'll be asked to choose your key protection method. Jennifer asks, is Venify considered compliant with FIPS? I believe they are. So Venify, for those of you who aren't familiar, they have a code signing solution which is similar to Secure Software Manager, and I believe that their key protection services are FIPS compliant. But I would advise you to double check that with them, and I'm sure they have literature on that to make sure that is, because otherwise you won't be compliant. So please do check with Venify, as it's their service. Do these changes apply to jar signer? David Connors asks, and the answer is yes. If you're signing your jars with a code signing public trust OV certificate, which is your standard code signing certificate, then today your private key does not need to be protected, but from June 1st onwards it will. So those private keys will need to be in a token, a HSM, a signing solution, or a KMS, or otherwise your CA should not be issuing you with any type of certificate. Okay, Era asks, is it correct that usual code signing certificates will continue working without hardware token after November 15th and until June 1st? Yeah, so this is a great question, right? Any certs you have today, which the key is not protected, and let's say you buy that today and it's a 2-year validity, so it'll run until 27th of September 2024. That certificate will continue to be valid for the length of the cert. If you buy a cert on the 1st of May next year, and it's a 1-year cert or a 2-year cert, that cert will also be usable for the period of time. So it's only on June 1st where you won't be able to order a cert without ensuring that the key is protected in one of these FIPS or common criteria methods. Okay, so Basil asks, are cloud HSMs approved for use? And the answer is yes. So I had bundled cloud HSMs under the KMS, but of course, Thales have a cloud HSM, it's the DPod service, and the cloud vendors themselves, like Azure and AWS and Google and all those guys, they typically have a HSM as a service running in their cloud. Again, it would be down to the customer to check that that service is compliant, because we will be asking you to attest to that. Of course, a lot of the time that is publicly information that is available, and there will be certification against those. But I would just advise you at this time, if you are considering using a cloud HSM, please just double check it aligns with the minimum FIPS and common criteria standards. If it does, you are good to go. Okay, let's see. We've got Nestor here. If you need to install a DigiCert issued code signing certificate on token, you must use an application developed for Windows. Will there be applications for other OSs? I might see if Yarden is available to help on this. I know his expertise in tokens is far greater than mine. Yarden, are you there?
Yes, so for this, we have our SafeNet authentication client, SAC, that you can issue certificate through this. It supports Windows, Linux, Mac. You can use this. The only, if I don't know, as for code signing for mobile, if you are using mobile, but for desktop operation systems, Windows, Mac, Linux, you can use SafeNet authentication client. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you, Yarden. Great. Okay, so the next question is around using a key management service with virtual servers. So the question that Erasmo has asked is, the code certificate can be live in both virtual servers. So how you would use a KMS with a virtual server is that the KMS would have some form of library or API integration with the virtual service, which is then, I would imagine, running your build CI/CD pipeline tool. And therefore, that's where your binaries are residing. But you will need to integrate your tool and the signing flow back to the KMS using a library, so that typically in a hash-based way, the hashes of your binaries are traveling over that KMS API to the key, which is protected in the KMS, and then getting pushed back down with a signed hash back to the virtual server. So it's not that the cert and the private key will live on the virtual server itself. It's that the virtual server will integrate with the key management service provider and make that end-to-end journey for the secure signing method. All right, I think we've got time for 3 more. And that should bring us then up to close on the hour. So we've Jeff Lee here, and Jeff wants to know, will this change automatically generate a code signing certificate when creating a key pair in SSM, or how users are signing code today? Yeah, Jeff, SSM, for those that aren't familiar, Secure Software Manager from DigiCert, from middle of April 2021, has already been enforcing the keys for all public trust code signing certificates to be stored in our FIPS-compliant service backed with the Thales Luna HSMs. So the short answer is, for SSM, if you've ordered or requested a certificate from the middle of 2021 onwards, we've already been enforcing a strict compliance on keys to be in FIPS compliant hardware as part of our service. So we're 18 months, and by the time this launches, we'll be 2 years ahead of what the CAB Forum has enforced, and therefore Secure Software Manager customers should see less disruption to these processes going forward. Hopefully that also means less rekeys, because the keys that have been used were generated from the start in a FIPS compliant storage. How can I use a SafeNet e-token in cloud environment? Is it possible to connect on a developer machine and sign a code in a cloud environment? Yarden, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, I saw this and I didn't know how to answer it. Basically, yes, you can use the token in any environment. We use it in our SafeNet authentication, SafeNet trusted access, and other cloud environments, identity providers. So I would say yes. I need to understand if the specific environment asked is this indeed the right answer. So the answer is yes, but I need to confirm indeed that about the developer environment, all this. But for me, it looks as it is supported.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And the next question, and I think we might wrap after this one, or maybe one more, but we've a question from Unai around online attestation. In case of customer hosted HSMs, is it based on cryptographic attestation, or is it also available for those HSM vendors that don't support attestation? So my answer to this, and maybe Yarden will also give a view on it as well, is that the CAB forum has been specific around how the attestation must be addressed, and the certificate authorities will be rolling out the requirement for when you need to prove your HSM is compliant with the standard. Today, this is typically done by providing an audit form, which is signed by somebody with a cybersecurity certification, such as an auditor or a CISSP or a CISM, and typically somebody in a high-ranking position within your company that has the authority to agree to that. There is some technical ways of doing it as well. I know that some of the HSMs are shipped with the ability to have its own certificate so that they can prove by signing it that it is being generated from a HSM that is compliant with the standard. Yarden, any wisdom?
We're referring to the question from James Manchester, yes?
For Unai in... Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the...
Yeah, the question is about online attestation for HSMs.
I'm not the person. We have to take it with our HSM
no worries. Team. Yeah, you and I will try and give you a more detailed answer as a follow-up after the webinar, if that's okay. No problem. Okay, Chris Walker, will it be an option prior to June 1st to use a DigiCert provided preconfigured token for OV code signing? I believe the answer is yes, Chris. We haven't decided on a date yet. Of course, we have to offer all of the options by June 1st, but I know that our team on the CertCentral side are eager to be able to supply customers with that option ahead of time. So while we don't have a date, yes, I believe the answer is that we will look to provide this as an option before June 1st. Okay, we don't have too many left, so let's if you can stick around and you're happy to listen to some of the questions, then it looks like we have two more. What would be the best storage to have as much automation as possible? Bills are automatically launched. So Sylvan, I'm going to declare my bias ahead because one of my responsibilities within DigiCert is the signing solution. And therefore, from that perspective, I believe, for large degree of automation, a signing solution is best placed to support that needs. I think there is also an argument to be made in a less biased way that a HSM is an excellent way of doing that. And in that degree, you can integrate the libraries available from the HSM to use with those tools. And therefore, that allows you to identify the users or the device requesting the signing and to integrate with full HSM automation for signing. If you're thinking about automation, then one of the options that we did present, which is the token where the pin is required either at a session based or on a per signing basis. is not as good as the HSM or the signing solution for automation of signing. But you know, the token, as we've mentioned earlier, has other strengths and has other benefits, and of course is a really cost-effective way of meeting the standard in a compliant way. So yeah, hopefully I answered that for you. The KMS does provide automation capabilities too, but that doesn't scale as well as a signing solution or a HSM. Okay, and then the last question is, if I don't have a USB on the server, is there an option to use the certificate? So yeah, I think Yarden, you may have touched on this one earlier. If the build server is in the data center, can you patch a method by which you plug the USB in and to a developer's machine and use that for signing?
Yes, same here. I cannot, you know, on the HSM side, I can just say that we have other form factors of authenticators as smart cards, using contact readers and NFC. So if this is something feasible on the HSM side, yes, but I don't know on the server what is the options on the server side.
Yeah, no, this was specific to the USB. So if the build server is running in the cloud or on a data center and a developer has a USB token at their PC, will they be able to sign on the build server using the key protection?
Let's take this after, okay? This
yeah,
is something...
Sure, no problem. Okay, so we'll actually, that one is from an anonymous attendee, so we won't be able to get back to them, I don't think. All right, so I think we've reached the top of the hour. We got through a large volume of those questions. There's still a couple that are coming in, and what we'll do is we'll make note of those and reach out to all of the individuals who asked those questions and answer them out of band outside of the webinar here. So thank you very much. I appreciate you joining us today to listen in to the CAB forum changes around key protection for code signing. Again, thankfully, the timelines have been pushed until the middle of next year. So we all have now time to plan to make changes which are going to be enforced. So please do get ready for that. And again, I want to also thank Yarden and the Thales team, which helped us to gather all this information and help provide that to you today on the webinar. Thank you, and have a great day. Yeah, thank you, Yarden. Take care.